Are you thinking about moving to France? A few years ago, we bought a chateau, spoke just enough French to get into trouble, and discovered life's most profound lessons have nothing to do with real estate and everything to do with human connection. Here's what we learned.
Oh, well, you look all cozy by the fire. The house is so quiet right now with the end of the retreat season and our last riders going. It's kind of nice to catch up though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is kind of quiet now. Really missing the company around the fire, but it's giving me a chance to catch up on my emails. And man, there's been a significant uptick in the number of inquiries about how to move to France and what options might be available. So that's going to be today's video, just sharing our experience.
Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Is there any resources that we can put online for people to be able to access?
Yeah, of course. I'll put some of our common ones up on the Patreon of the members site and share that out for people. And then, of course, I had to look into Skillshare, and of course, they've got something that covers this. There's a moving abroad and three things to consider for that. There's also a bunch of like journaling courses on Skillshare, which I kept a journal for like our first year of us moving abroad, which was really super helpful, both logistically and emotionally.
Yeah.
So there's lots of journaling courses out there as well.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Skillshare is the largest online learning community for makers of all kinds. There are classes on all sorts of topics: photography and writing and crafts, productivity, even digital skills. And they're not overwhelming. They're bite-sized lessons that you can do as you have time. They've also added some improvements like smarter class categories, some new topics such as artificial intelligence and creative inspiration. And if you're a new member, you can share a little bit about your interests, and Skillshare will make some recommendations just for you. The nice part is how supportive the community feels. When you start a class, you're not just watching videos. There are project guides, and other people taking the class share their work and give some feedback. You can see that I put the floral courses to good use while the writers were here, and I'm looking forward to learning some more. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So get started today.
So you're thinking about moving to France?
We get that question a lot. We get a lot of people emailing us about our journey and how to do it and asking lots of questions. So we thought we'd just put a video out there and answer some of the more common questions, share some of the realities that we've experienced, because we've been here for 4 years now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely some shifts, particularly coming from North America. The difference in society, the difference in the social structure, obviously the bureaucracy. Oh, the bureaucracy.
What we get to enjoy here versus what's different than
exactly.
Back in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I think a lot of what we're talking about is going to be really similar between Canada and the U.S., except for the obvious healthcare thing.
Yeah.
Which we won't talk about much because that gets talked about a lot. But in terms of our reality and what we've experienced here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think my number one, and you touched on it, is the bureaucracy is real.
Yes.
Everything you have heard about French bureaucracy is somewhat understated.
Yeah.
Getting in as an expat and getting started in the system, because it's all set up for French people who already exist. So if you don't exist, how do you sort of get that first step into the loop? We often talk about the boucle here, the buckles that you get stuck in, sort of the endless loop of you can't get a telephone, you can't get a mobile phone without a bank account, you can't get a bank account without a mobile phone. You can't
that was a fun one.
You can't get an EDF, you can't get an electrical account without an address.
Right.
But if you've never lived in France, you don't have an address to give to them. And so instead of that, they want a mobile phone and a bank account, which you can't get unless you have an address, which can only be verified by your EDF account. So I could go on, but the bureaucracy is real.
I mean, any country you move to is going to have bureaucracy,
Absolutely,
right? Like if you're not naturalized into a country, obviously there's going to be lots of hoops to jump through. And the funny thing about it, the thing that you'll find here is that the people who are administering this bureaucracy know that it is crazy.
They are the first to laugh about it, which is hilarious. I enjoy that part very much.
They're not going to change, but they see the absurdity of it sometimes, and they will laugh along. And that is definitely one big thing with the bureaucracy here. We found that if you do something wrong, try again. France is very much kind of like, okay, you didn't do it this time, but give it a shot and do it again. And it doesn't seem to be a limit to that, which is good.
The other thing I like about it is once you find your person, then it makes the second try easier.
Yeah.
So I think what we're used to now in North America is a lot of automated systems where you can never reach a person.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's still very relationship based. So once you find your person who's going to help you through signing up for the healthcare system or getting a bank account or whatever, once you start doing that and you build the relationship with them,
Yeah.
they are there to help you, and they've been very helpful. So I think that's a real difference.
And they do have digital systems, but you have to be prepared for the fact that there is going to be paperwork, and some things definitely still need to be done by snail mail here.
Well, I think my funniest ones are the ones that are a combination of the both. So I went on and I had to fill out a multi-step digital form. Like it was, do this and verify that and attach all these proofs of this, that, and the other thing, because they do like a dossier here. They do like proof of everything. And so it was like 7 steps of digital and attaching this and completing that and checking that box. And it got to the end and it said, great, we will physically mail you the result in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was just like, okay. And then when I got the result, it was pretty obvious that it could have been an automated response based on what I'd put in.
Right.
So anyway, it's a mix. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I think one of the things that we would give as advice for people who are doing it now is there are a lot of hand-holding services or people that are willing to do that. I mean, you need to do your research. It's worth the time because it saves you on the frustration.
Yeah.
They also can explain it to you, and particularly because if French is not your first language or you don't understand it, just having somebody who can be able to translate it and
make sure
take you
you're
through
not
the
missing a context or a nuance or something like that is really important.
So highly recommend that if anybody is planning on doing it.
We did it all ourselves, and
actually she did most of it.
That is my top piece of advice. When people ask me, like, what would you do differently next time? My top piece of advice is hire a handholder.
Yeah. I mean, and anyway, I'm very glad that Sarah's the one that did it.
So the next topic would be the visas.
Yes.
We get a lot of questions about our visa, and basically the answer is it won't be relevant to you because we're here on what was known as the Brexit visa.
Yeah.
So we have a 5-year carte de séjour, which was issued because we are both British citizens as well as Canadian citizens, and that system is closed now, and it was only available for 6 months. So if you didn't get it then, we can't help you. So basically, whatever situation you're in, we can't help you.
We know. I mean, we did some research, or Sarah did some research into what the other visa systems are. There are several that are available. The tricky part is understanding whether or not you are coming here to work and actually make a living, or whether you're retiring here. Those can be two very, very different things. And there are visas that will do both, but one requires a lot more work and a lot more of a business plan. That would be entrepreneurial visa or a special case visa. But there are options available. Again, this is something that I think if you had someone who can handhold you through the process, would be very good at being able to go, okay, this is the path that you need to take to make that work for you.
Yeah, and your consulate's going to have a lot of information as well.
Definitely.
Right? Consulate has all the visa information, so just start there because they are the source. Everyone's situation is different. Don't believe all the stuff you read online unless you're looking at the consulate website. Like that's the gold standard.
Yeah.
Next thing people are often questioning is the tax and the lending side of things.
Right.
So obviously we can't speak to your tax situation. We're not financial professionals.
No.
We're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. Do not take your financial advice from us. We bought a chateau after all.
Yes, exactly. under poor financial choices. You're right there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people have problems adjusting to here is that there aren't a lot of paths to lending. So the French are really serious about a 30% debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
So all of your borrowing, including your mortgage, your credit cards, your car payment, anything you are borrowing money on goes to that 30%. And that is based on your French salary. If you don't have a fixed salary from a French company, then 30% of nothing is nothing. Now, obviously, that's not going to be 100% of the cases, but everything we've run into has basically said, you don't have a French salary, so no lending for you. So that's why French house prices stay reasonable, because you have to manage your mortgage payment within that 30%. And most French people don't really have or use credit cards in the same way that we do in North America.
You can certainly see that as a nanny state if you want to go to the extreme side of things, but what it does generally is even the playing field for the population, so that
There's
as
that.
house prices stay level, and cost of living just is a little more affordable here because of those kind of rules that have been put in place. And I think one of the things that you come to understand when you live here is that the French people are not motivated by money.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as in they don't want money. It's just that it's less about a gathering of things and utilizing, getting more money and more money and more money, and constantly upgrading. The life balance here is much different. It's much more talking about, okay, I have the money I need to live, but I would rather spend the time with my family or my friends,
Yeah.
and live life. Like the 2 hour lunch is a real thing here.
Yeah.
They every day between 12 and 2, people go to lunch, and they sit down with their families or their friends, and they have a glass of wine, and they have a nice meal.
Yeah.
Their weekends are precious to them. There's even things like, there's rules on the books here where your employer cannot contact you after hours or on weekends. It's actually illegal for them to do that, which is, it's all to just say that there's a balance shift here, particularly coming from North America. It's much more about living life for each other and for living versus for working.
The terrace life is amazing.
Mhm.
Like, if you want us to go to Sarlat or go to Outfort again, even if we've been a dozen times, 2 dozen times, 3 dozen times, even the 1,000th time, it's going to be amazing, because we will just grab a drink and sit on the terrace and watch the world go by, and it is just so delightful. It's just such a lovely way to spend your time and just slow down, right? Like, just that slower pace of life is real. And I think once you get used to those 12 to 2 closings, or the restaurant isn't open till 7, and you just kind of embrace that and build your schedule around it, oh, it's just, I love it so much.
It is great, and it is a slower pace of life. I mean, the flip side of it, if there is a negative side to it, it's really that, because that's it's less about the motivation of money. When you're talking with people that you need, services that you need and things like that, sometimes you don't get them as speedy as you're used to in North America, right? Sometimes you just can't, assume that a contractor is going to be available that day, or you need to get something done. You have to sort of build that time into it. I mean,
and we've asked our French friends, is like, are they just ignoring us because we're North American,
right?
Because we're not French? And they're like, no, they ignore everyone. Paris and major cities aside, I think Paris,
of course,
and the major centers, they're shifting towards 24/7 go. But out here in the less
rural
urban
areas, So I think the next one that we get a lot of talk about and a lot of questions is the language barrier. And I will speak to it from my perspective, because my language skills are growing, but they're slowly. And
I know one of you out there right now is grabbing your keyboard to say, just learn the language already. Things take time.
They do take time, and there's circumstances and things like that, but it will make your life better if you can speak the language.
Oh, it's so much richer when you can. I mean, the neighbors here are wonderful anyways. But you're going to have a richer life if you can engage with them on more levels.
But the nice thing is like, we live in a very, very small community. The village is only 500 people. It's very rural. Obviously, very little English spoken here. But if you just try, boy, what a difference that makes. I've found that. I mean, as I say, my language skills are improving, but are maybe a little further behind than they should be. But I still have interactions with the people. They're still willing to have a chat with me, and they have a lot of patience for trying it out. As long as you're giving them some sort of indication that you're trying, it makes a world of difference.
I think the last thing people ask us a lot about is the property buying. And there's a lot available online, but just know that it is very different than North America. So you can expect, like in our home in Fergus, we sold in 7 days. And
we could have sold in 3.
We could have sold in 3, and it was done and dusted, like contract signed, everything. Here, especially, well, it depends on each property, but it takes longer. It's a 3-step process. And within the second process is a 10-day waiting period where you must not say anything to anyone for 10 days. And you can expect the overall process to take months.
It was 4, I think 4 months for us.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
And we moved as quickly as we could. but there were still complications. So you do that final step with all 3 steps, but the final step, particularly with the notaire. The notaires are very important in that process.
Yeah.
They're like a cross between a lawyer and a chartered accountant, and they have jurisdiction over all the property transactions that happen. So if you are changing land in any capacity, notaire is involved.
And the nice thing is the notaire is not beholden to either side. They are a neutral party. They are a government body. So they are there to help both sides and not value one over the other. But it is a different experience. I mean, the nice thing is, as we mentioned earlier, because of the way that the finances work, the house prices here are reasonable. I mean, if you're in rural areas, obviously when you're in the cities, it's going to be comparable to anywhere else in the world. But you know, in the rural parts of France, you could still buy a decent house for less than 100,000 euros.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to need some upkeep, but move-inable, I think, for less than 100,000. So there's a lot available, and the other thing to look at when you're talking real estate and where you want to live is France is a very diverse country.
Very diverse, yeah.
There's 95 departments in France and 18 regions, I think. 18 regions, something like that.
Yeah.
And they're, from the Pyrenees to the Alps to the Atlantic Ocean to the
From
Mediterranean.
Provence to Brittany, they each have their own flavor.
They do.
So like our friends Elske and Maurice right now are out exploring France because they didn't know all the regions of France. So that's a thing to think about. Like when you're moving here, there's lots of things to think about when you become an expat, but you really need to think about what you're moving to more than what you're moving away from. And I'm also going to do a shout out to Baguette Bound, who live nearby. We don't know them personally, but they've had a video out this week. It's gone fairly viral, and they do a really great discussion about like why you're considering moving. So I'm going to put a link to that, and I suggest you guys go check that video out as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at the end of the day, there are a number of people that are doing this sort of thing, and if there are questions, I mean, we've had a number of people reach out to us with questions. We've had a few people that have even come and wanted sort of a home base that they can then go and search for their own properties, and we love it. I mean, I think we will always say we love Canada so much. Canada's an amazing country. It was never a matter of us escaping Canada, but this culture feels like it fits us the way we want it to.
Just a little bit better,
So we're very, very happy here, and we're working through the issues. There's always going to be issues, doesn't matter where you go in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that the culture and the lifestyle that we found here is what we were aiming for.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
All right, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
You can, like, subscribe, leave comments, that sort of thing. We've got a couple of extra videos where Elske and I are doing a chat about her move to the country, and that's over on our Patreon. And other than that, we look forward to your feedback and maybe meeting some of you soon.
Yeah, and if there's further questions, put them in the comments. We'll do our best to try and address them.
Sounds good.
Thanks guys.
Everyone.